Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Bill Welsh from Refuge, Huntington Beach, and you are listening to Refuge Radio, coming to you live right now from the studios of K-Wave 107.9. And you know it's 107.9 because that's probably where you're listening. But thank you for tuning in today. In fact, I want you to take a moment right now and text all your friends and all your enemies and invite them to join us either here on K-Wave, or they can also, if they'd like to watch a live broadcast of the program, they can go to Facebook or YouTube. Facebook, you go to facebook.com/K-Wave 107.9, and on YouTube or also on Facebook, just look for K-Wave or Pastor's Perspective. We're broadcasting video on that feed. So I began with Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. I want you to know this, that those words were spoken to the leaders of a nation of nomads, and that was the nation of Israel at that time. They were exiles, they were in exile because God put them there. He was removing them from Egypt, from where they'd been for 400 years, exiles. And now for the next 40 years, God would pour truth into them. He would develop strength in them, determination, and teach them as a nation how to follow him into the future. Now, there's parallels between their situation then, and I hope I'm sure some of you are catching that right now, similarities between their situation then and our situation now. And by the way, yes, I am hoping and praying and confident that we will not be in our exile either 400 years or 40 years in quarantine and restriction and limited from gatherings. So what I've done today, I think you're going to be excited about our program. I've invited a new friend of mine to join us on Refuge Radio and help me talk through what it means. Here's our theme. Talk through what it means to be pastoring a church through a time of exile. About 2 weeks ago, I talked to my teenage granddaughters, and I called them teens in exile. We talked about that. But today, I'm in the studio with a screen in front of me, and I can see my new friend, Pastor Danny Carroll, here in the studio. Welcome to Refuge Radio, Danny.
Oh, thank you, Bill. It's great to be with you guys today.
It's just been great to meet you last week. This coming Thursday, it'll be a week. And just to connect with you over this as well. Now, you're the founding pastor of the Water of Life Community Church in Fontana, California, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
And tell us a little bit about that church now. How long have you been there?
Well, we started 30 years ago in my living room with 17 people. So it's been a great wild ride for us.
Wow. Now, I got to ask you publicly, do you prefer Danny or Dan?
Either one's fine. Dan is fine. Yep.
Now, Danny and Billy make us sound a lot younger. So I'm just saying. But I'll tell you, just a little bit of time I've spent with you, brother, you got a young heart, and I love that about you. You're not stopping. Oh, we just met last Thursday, but you and I have a bit in common, don't we?
You know, we have a lot in common.
It's interesting.
Yes,
these points we definitely is we're the same generation. I think I'm a tiny bit older than you are, but we both graduated high school in 1970, and both came to the Lord in 1970.
70, yeah.
And I love this. We were so close to meeting each other close to 50 years ago because we both spent time under the big top, under the tent down here at Calvary Chapel. So,
Calvary Chapel, yeah.
So you got saved in 1970 as well, didn't you?
I did in February of 1970, and we used to come down to Thursday night Bible study all the time with Pastor Chuck. Yeah.
Wow. You got in ahead of me. I wasn't until November of that year, so I'm coming up on my 50th. And this was an interesting little factoid. When you said this, I couldn't believe it. But we have both moved our wife and our family through 16 different homes before we settled into the one that we're in.
And it's a miracle we're both still married.
I know. She just said, yes, I'll keep following this nomad. But we're both privileged to serve amazing congregations here in Southern California and both leading those congregations through this COVID season with these wonderful people. And obviously we're both eager to gather them all together again as soon as possible. Amen?
Amen. Yep.
And that's kind of the platform we met on, Danny, that you have been involved with this more up in the front than me, but I just applaud what you're doing. Talk to the people about what's happening on this, as much as you can, anyway. I know not all of this is possibly public, but what's happening between your fellowship and Sacramento?
Well, it's been a real interesting ride, Bill, as far as we started a discussion, Pastor Diego Mesa at Abundant Living Fellowship in Cucamonga, Matt Brown at Sandals Church in Riverside, and myself, each of us struggling with the exile and trying to understand, what are we going to do here? How are we going to manage this? How can we survive? What are we going to do if they tell us we can't open back up for 3 more months or something like that?
Yeah.
And so we decided to have a meeting and just sit and talk about it. And Matt said, why don't we meet at your church, Dan? And I'll drive up from Riverside and we'll meet. So that's really what began the whole journey.
Yeah.
And when that got out, I mentioned it to a couple people. Diego mentioned it to a couple people, and Matt did the same. And people started calling us saying, hey, can we come? We have the same interest. We want to talk about reopening our churches. And before a day was gone, we had 20 people wanting to come. And the next day it was up to 40. And then we said, okay, hold it. We got to stop, because we were just wanting to have a strategic discussion. And what happened was we ended up with 40 plus men, including yourself, in that room, men and women leaders. And
at least one other Calvary Chapel guy that I know of that was there. Pastor Joe from Montclair was there.
Right. He was there. And so representing upwards of 1,500 churches, actually.
Wow.
And so that was a bit shocking. And then the next couple of days, we've had the Southern Baptist Convention of California call in and say, we saw the press conference. We want to be in with you guys.
Yes.
We want to reopen. And really what I tried to express at the press conference was, we're not here to rebel. We just want to partner with the governor, but we want to be treated fairly. You guys haven't even mentioned us. You've not had any purposeful interaction with the church or people of faith in California since this started. And so we had reached out numerous times with no response from the governor's office. Then when we started this, and it kind of caught some momentum, and the news agencies caught wind of it, and they wanted to do a press conference, then they started calling us, which is unfortunate, but that's how this works, apparently. And so we had a news conference that day, and then it really has gone viral since then. We had Fox News call on the weekend and say, would you be on Fox and Friends on the weekend?
Great.
So I did that. And then Pastor Diego's going up to Oakland on Thursday to meet with Pastor Bob Jackson and several African-American churches in Oakland that want to join this movement. And all of us are saying the same thing to the governor's office. Please address us. Please help us. Put us into phase 2. We can do. I just had a discussion with the governor's administrative assistant, one of the people that we're working with, for probably 25 minutes this afternoon. And I said to him, could you please explain? He got the same detailed report you have in front of you that we sent to the governor's office last night. He said that's been pushed up to the COVID administration team, and that they are reviewing it, and they would respond to us. And so we started just talking, and I said, can you help me to understand what is different from my church opening with 3,300 seats and putting 250 people in a meeting?
Amazing compliance too, by the way, Danny. I think one of the things I so appreciated about your approach is that it wasn't just, we're crashing the gates and we're going to do this whether we get the approval or not. You were very, very respectful and articulate in the way that you've presented in other words, the powers that be. And I just think that says a lot for a sense of wisdom. And I just think in the long run, it gives us a better face to the people that we're trying to reach in our community.
Right. And we don't, like I said in the press conference, we're not activists. We're pastors.
Yeah.
We love our people. And what you're doing at Home Depot, when I'm in the aisle at Home Depot and there's 8 or 10 people looking at sprinkler parts the other day and nobody's moving, everybody had a mask on. I said, but I can do this in my church, and these people can be safer in my church with 250 people in a worship center that seats 3,000. Let us run 6 or 8 services on a weekend like this. Let us move people through with masks on. Let us move people through with delineators. No hugging, no touching, no, just safely come in.
Isn't that hard? Isn't that difficult? I'll tell you. I went today to visit with a couple, a really precious, sweet young couple who are scheduled to be married. And so we're going to go ahead with the wedding with a very small number of people. And and I said, this is like a covert COVID wedding that you're going to have. But it's like we have to take the step across the threshold. And I love the sense of compliance, but still with purpose. Explain to people why this phase 2 distinction is important. What puts us into phase 2? What's that word that they keep using about these businesses versus these other businesses? Some are
essential. Yeah. The word is essential, and they've deemed the church in California as non-essential.
Right.
I was able to share with them a very interesting article that came out from the American Psychiatric Association last week. Somebody sent it to me out of the blue and said, you should read this article. They deem faith people as first responders, that you're dealing with death, you're dealing with crisis and suicide, you're dealing with the heartaches of people. You are first responders. Why aren't they treating you like first responders?
And we're dealing with the prevention element of that as well, aren't we?
Absolutely.
I read on one of the things. I'll hold this up so you can see it and others as well. But on this, just a 3-page thing that was put together, talking about the fact that there's an 8,000% increase in the calls into suicide hotlines and crisis prevention. And the church, that's what we were made for, to be there. And we're not asking we're not asking for permission to jam in people on top of people. No. We're more than willing to cut back. We did the same reset in our sanctuary yesterday, and we're looking at maybe 175 to 200 we can get into an 850 seat auditorium, but we'll see. So,
that's what we're trying to do, the same thing, Bill. It's just,
Yeah. And I love the sense of just the appropriateness of the way that you're doing it, Danny, and I'm praying for you. Tell the people on that point how they can be praying and who they can be contacting, if that would help.
Well, there's local assembly leaders. We're working with our local assembly leaders in San Bernardino County. We're trying to do the same thing in Riverside, Orange County, and just trying to alert people. A lot of the counties, in fact, I was on the phone with our supervisors last night with this document that you have, and they said, we are for you. We understand your need, and we're asking the governor to release us in San Bernardino County to oversee our own businesses and our own phase 2 reopenings.
Okay.
And they said, if he will do that, we'll partner with you to make this happen. So,
so
we need to pray for those people. Yeah.
Great. So county and state officials and all of that's available
members,
online.
Assembly members, correct. Yeah, we call our assembly members. We have 3 in our local area. We're working with all of them. We sent all of them this document. And correct,
and that makes them feel respected too. Whatever party they're in, that we would take the time to go to them first and say, we don't want to go civil disobedience on something like this.
No.
I've been telling everybody, I want to save my civil disobedience card for the day they tell me I can't preach the gospel.
Exactly.
I don't want to kick down all the doors, but there are some that I'm going to ignore when we come to that.
Right.
Well, let's talk for a little bit about what it means. How has it been for you to pastor the church through this time, along with comforting them and all that? What is our call at this point? What are we saying to our people, and how are we reaching them?
Well, as a pastor, I think the first thing we all had to do is just get over the shock, the initial shock of they're going to really close the doors. If you've been like myself or you, Bill, pastoring for 30, 40 years, which is what I've been doing, 30 years here at Water of Life and then 10 years prior to that. And somebody actually comes in and says, now we're going to close your doors and you cannot meet. That took us a week or two just to get over the shock.
I was in Israel when that happened, and I thought, no, come on, that doesn't happen there, not at home.
It seemed impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed impossible. And so as soon as we knew that it was coming, we got on the front end of it because we have a large staff, over 300, and we had to start working with our staff, deciding what we were going to do. We decided we were going to try to keep everybody paid and everybody on. We were going to call through our whole roster of thousands and thousands of homes and make contact with every individual in our home and love them, pray with them, hear their needs. Try to serve them. So that was the initial movement. And then the second thing that we did was really start ramping up all of our technology. And we have a great team, so we were able to ramp up our technology rather rapidly. and get ready where we could get
Great.
online quickly, start our services online right away, and then start to assess how to proceed and how to move forward from there.
Great. What would you suggest to any pastors that are listening? Who can they contact to get kind of up to speed on that as well? I know many small churches, very small churches, didn't have the ability to
capacity,
to go into YouTube.
Well, let me tell you something that we've done, and taking a bit of a risk here, but I'm going to go ahead and jump.
Okay.
I challenged our church at the very front end of this whole thing for the stimulus money that the government was going to give them, if they didn't need it, to donate it to the poor and to people who did need it. And so that has been just an extravagant thing that our church has done to try to serve people. And our church has given beyond our regular tithes and offerings, which we've met our budget every single week since we've gone out. They have given $550,000 to support the poor.
Oh, praise God.
So we've been feeding people in India, in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Kenya, all over the world, but also locally. And we're working with our own local officials to buy test kits so we can start testing. But one of the things I wanted to say was we've supported a dozen churches right now to get the technology to be able to reach their people, to try to help them purchase or rent time in studios so that they can go online. And I'm willing to try to help as many churches do that as people that can reach out to us and contact us off our webpage. We want to help people.
And your webpage is?
It's wateroflifecc.org is our...
wateroflifecc.org. And you know, one thing I want to say too, and just get your thoughts on this too. When we're looking at a congregation of people that we can't see sitting in front of us anymore, and they see us, we don't see them, on our live feeds and all that, I am trying to encourage them to just be the church beyond the walls. And that's what you and I have been called to do, to equip the saints, the believers in Christ.
For the work of service.
Out there in the community, the streets, the highways and byways. I think I've said it on this program that we, as pastors, we love to see the people in the seats. And Jesus was intent to get the people in the streets. And I want to see so many people out there speaking blessings over their neighbors. And do you see that many people now, it seems like more people are really open to a message of hope that is seeded in the gospel?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everybody's shaken up, and we have that ability in America, whether it was 9/11, whether it's this crisis. When crisis hits, people... they listen way better when they're in crisis.
Absolutely. And I need to reset. I need to say right now, because some people are listening in thinking, this doesn't sound like the normal program, and it's not. You're listening to a live edition of Refuge Radio. This is Pastor Bill Welsh, and I'm interviewing Pastor Danny Carroll from Water of Life Community Church out in Fontana. So, and we've just got a little bit of time left here, and I'm going to try to get in a little snippet of this song that is going around the world, not just because it's a singable song, but I think, Danny, that God has ordained this song for this moment. It comes from the passage that I read at the very beginning of the program, and it's God telling Moses, "This is how you speak to my people," because there would be times that they were frustrated with the people of Israel. And God said, you don't beat my people, you bless my people. And I'm going to ask if we could roll that and let people listen to this. We'll come back and share a little bit more, but I'm just hoping that God's people will just step. I would love to let this play out to the end. It chokes me up every time I get to that part about your family and your children and their children and their children, Danny. And I'm going to ask you if you would just pray a blessing over the people that are listening right now. We have just about 3 minutes left, but if you got a word you want to share to encourage, and then just pray for us.
One of the things I've done, Bill, that I didn't mention is I started a devotional 8 weeks ago, and I do it 5 days a week, and I do it online. I get up every morning, record it on my phone, and send it into Vimeo. Anybody that wants to access those, I just try to bless my church every day. Every morning I say,